We're back, another video for you today, working on the 07K. I've got a box right here with all kinds of parts, and we're gonna start tearing this engine down and getting ready to refresh it. So, goal for today, strip this thing into a bare long block, start prepping some of these parts, see what else we have to order, and start cleaning this thing up. So we're gonna clean it up, we're gonna paint it, regasket it, new pan, all kinds of parts. I'll show you everything we got here to go on it, but Step one is start tearing this thing down. So let's get to it. Before we get to tearing this thing down, a couple things I've got kind of set aside here. I've got some baggies, tape, and a Sharpie. So it's been a while since I've taken one of these engines kind of somewhat apart. I've never really stripped one down this bare. So all my hardware and my clips and pieces, I'm gonna put into baggies. I'm gonna label what it is and where it came from, and we're gonna go from there. The game plan is kind of start on the outsides and work our way in. I'm probably going to start on the back first, just because this is some of the crustier areas that we want to get to. I'm leaving it on this dolly for now. We'll explain more later. But yeah, so I'm going to start stripping off the manifold here, probably the trans mount, so snake some of the wiring out, and then try and get this intake manifold off. Then all our belts and pulleys, and get this thing ready to clean up. Also, side note, look at the studs on the exhaust manifold, or the nuts. Look how crusty those are. That's what they're supposed to look like. Gross. Back to it. All right, so we got the top studs off and the outer ones on the bottom. But if you can see under there, the middle ones right there are completely rotten, and they're no longer a 12, and they're too big for an 11. So I'm gonna break out my trusty friends here, my extractors, which is gonna be a challenge because I can't really get it in there. So I'm gonna grab the one that's, we'll start with the 12. We'll start with the 12. We'll get into that one if we need. So basically you hammer this on and you put a ratchet in there, which I don't have room for. So put a wrench on there and we'll try and get these off. So we'll come back once this is off. I knew this, because of the amount of rust on the chassis, would be the worst. So let's get this done. All right, so we got our manifold off. You can see just how crusty this thing is underneath. But our extractors worked for the most part. I knew this was gonna happen to some of them, but we had a couple fallen soldiers, so we had a couple studs, this one and that one, break off. Those were the crustiest, but you can see all the garbage under here. So we'll have to either weld a nut or try and grip on that. It doesn't look like there's very much to grip, so we'll definitely be welding a nut on those. So I'll have to get somebody to come over with a welder since I don't have one here, but yeah, you can see just how crusty this thing is behind here. So we've got to get all this cleaned up and looking fresh. And you can see the nice leaky oil pan. So I have a new lower pan, but I'm going to take the upper off as well too, because it looks, I can't tell if this is from above or straight from here, or I really don't know. So while we're here, we're going to do everything. So I am going to put a glove over this CV joint, or CV inlet, or whatever we call that. So with CV axle bolts, just so I'm not covered in grease and this doesn't fill with dirt. So back to it. All right, so we got our wiring harness off. The fuel feed and everything came off. The clamp broke coming off of the fuel rail, which is fine. I want to replace all this stuff anyway. There was a one-time clamp holding one of the evap lines to the throttle body. Got our wiring harness and everything snaked out of here. There's a bracket that runs across the engine. It actually presses into the head or timing cover, whatever that is, and then bolts to this side of the head here. That's got the little support that actually used to hoist the engine out. So I took that off just so I could get everything else out. We have access to everything for our intake manifold. There is, see if I can pull that out. There's the other piece of the connector that broke for the fuel injector on the harness, so get rid of that. But yeah, we're starting to get down to it here. Still more stuff to pull off, obviously, but you can see just how crusty and old this thing is. So next, unfortunately, is going to be the belt system. I'm not great with belts. I'll be the first one to admit it. So I'm going to take some pictures and video of what all this stuff looks like so I can remember it. And then we'll start pulling this stuff apart. I think I'll probably do the intake manifold first just because it's the easiest. And then whatever evap stuff this is, then we'll do this monstrosity. All right, so we got all of our accessories off. To pull the rest of this stuff, I'm just gonna pull the intake manifold. I think it's easier. Really don't know what I'm doing, but so we're gonna start pulling the intake manifold. Looks like there's a bunch of Allens in there holding it on the top and the sides, and I can't really see the bottom. So, oh, there's one in there, and I think there's probably one through here. That's probably what that access hole is for. How nice of them, even though I don't have anything long enough to fit in there. But yeah, we'll square them on the floor and we'll figure out what we need to do. So let's do it. All right, I gotta share this because it's just ridiculous. I've got all the accessories off. I've got the thermostat housing and the thermostat out. So trying to take the intake manifold off, there's apparently 8 or 9 bolts. So one of them you have to go through the intake manifold. Well, I didn't have a 6 mil or a T40 that's long enough. So I've got 2 1/4-inch extensions paired up to a 1/4-inch to 3/8 adapter, and then onto a T40. I don't know if you can see that in there. So then I can slowly take this out. Eventually this is gonna get jammed. So I'm just gonna have to keep pulling this at the same time. So we'll go back to the tripod, but it takes some ingenuity to work on Volkswagen sometimes. I'm sure there's some sort of special tool that you're supposed to have for this, but I've got a lot of specialty tools, but that isn't one of them. Oh, this is where we're at. All the accessories are off. Let me grab a light. You can kind of see it on the tops of the valves. It's really not too bad. Kind of hard to see on video. But I mean, some dirt and stuff, but she's looking pretty good. This is a tall motor with all the accessories off it. Very thin, very tall. She is crusty. So next is to strip this last water neck off. I have a new one, so I want to see if it comes with any hardware clamps before I take this off. And then it looks like that right there is actually broken from rust. Look at that, that's split right in half. So I'll have to get a new one of these as well. I don't know if I got one of those or not, but if not, we will get one. So this is why you take stuff apart and actually look into it. Yeah, you can see all that corrosion that's got in there, and it split the housing. That's crazy. Oh, that sucked. So next time you see this, everything will be off it. All right, so this pesky bolt right there, as you can see, this thing's chewed up. Decided to be stripped. So I ended up notching it, trying to use a screwdriver. Didn't work, but I snapped that piece of the head off, and I got onto it with some vice grips, and we got it out. So screw that thing, and then we can pull this thing off. Oh, there's coolant lines attached to it. So Yeah, I'll pull that off in a minute, but what a nightmare. So I'm just kind of out here picking away at a few things off camera and kind of cleaning up some tools. And next thing I got to pull off is this adapter for the thermostat, like the thermostat housing. And there's one more coolant line right there that I got to detach. So that's attached to the oil cooler. So I'm like, oh, I'll just pull that off. And I just realized I never drained the oil out of this engine. So this thing has 6-ish liters of oil in it. All the brackets that I can lift it up by have been removed. And it's going to make a mess. So just trying to figure out what my game plan is here. If I pull the oil filter and make a complete mess, or I reattach some things to lift this thing up and drain it. But just a little reminder, we all make mistakes. So drain your oil before you pull your engine. All right, so we got it stripped down. Oil cooler off. Dipstick too, I'm keeping in there while I refresh everything, so it's just one less hole to plug. But yeah, this thing is pretty crusty, honestly. So it'll be a good transformation. But yeah, so next thing up, I'm gonna pull the valve cover off and see what it looks like underneath. All right, so we got our valve cover off, taking a look inside. Other than some dirt that fell in while pulling this off, everything looks really good. The cams look really good. There's no scoring, there's nothing. You know, it's a little dirty inside, but like overall, it really looks pretty good in here. So pretty stoked on that. For a mystery engine, you never know what you're gonna get. So yeah, looks good from here. So gonna throw the valve cover back on so when I refresh everything, it doesn't get all dirty. Like, look at all this crust in here we're gonna have to get rid of. So that'll be fun. All right, so I haven't filmed in a little while. Engine was over here, it's been moved. We're getting there on the cleaning. The dipstick tube broke off because it was all rotten and seized in there. So it's an hour of my life I'll never get back, but it's out. There's a couple of metal pieces in there, but we're dropping the oil pan anyway, so not a big deal. All right, so I got my engine in a questionable position right now, so don't worry about that. Tire's doing what the tire needs to do. And we're prepping to pull the pan off to replace it. All the bolts are out, so we're gonna take this off, and you can probably see why, all the rust and crust, so it's not very solid. So, prepping it for the new pan. All right, I'm back. It's been a little bit since I've seen my face. Got a fresh stack of bolts from Jeremy at Volkswagen, and we are prepped to put the oil pan on. I was actually waiting for these bolts to put the oil pan on from the last clip you saw, which was last night. Well, I'm dumb. I already had those. Jeremy had already got them for me. So, yeah, we're gonna toss the oil pan on, and I'll show you where we're at right now. So we got everything all clean and dry, all ready to go. So I've got my old oil pan here, and I've got my brand new one out of the box here, and I've got a new gasket somewhere. Maybe it's actually still in the box. It is still in the box, so I got a gasket for it. I've got all new hardware right in here. So we're gonna toss this on. Got our new pan on, all new hardware. I'm gonna go ahead and look up the torque spec and then torque this kind of in a crisscross pattern like you would a lug nut or a wheel, lug nut on a wheel. So you get a good even torque. Didn't make too much of a mess. Not rusty. Looks good. I know you're kind of wondering why I'm putting this on with it sideways and before I painted this. It's just because it's so much easier for my situation. I can put this back on the way it was sitting and then paint it while it's sitting up. So that's the plan for the rest of the weekend, is to get this fully finished and painted. So then we can start putting on our boatload of parts. All right, so we are back. It's been about a week since I last filmed, so I have no idea what I left off with. I think it was finishing up cleaning the engine, so we're gonna start painting it. I'm gonna show you what it looks like before we start and what we're gonna use to paint it. All right, so here's the current state of our engine. We've got it cleaned up as best as we possibly can. Looks a lot better than the first time that this thing was all cleaned up, so. All right, so this is what we're gonna use to paint this. We're gonna use Pour 15, one of the best coatings that you can get out there. It is not cheap, and there's technically an engine kind of version of this, but this is what they recommend as a base coat before you put the other stuff on. And at the end of the day, it's still a 21-year-old Volkswagen. Doesn't have to be absolutely show car worthy, but we're gonna use this. We're gonna coat everything in this, all the accessories and everything as well too. So let's just get to it. All right, so next up on this motor is changing this front crank seal. So I got a brand new one right here. Gonna get that all prepped to put on. So basically pull the bolts off, and I'm assuming it's just RTV'd on. So I've got some Honda Bond, and I will pull this on, coat this one, new one back on, and we're good to go. So let's get that done. All right, so I got all these accessories, including the starter down there, that I'm going to coat up. They still look pretty bad, but I've sanded them down, they're smooth, so get everything coated. I also have this accessory bracket that I was gonna coat, but there's a ton of like nooks and crannies and stuff. So I'm gonna take that to work and actually sandblast it and just spray paint it. Yeah, this process of cleaning this engine and everything has really taken a toll on the floors, so can't wait to get this done, and spring to come so I can clean up all this mess, but let's coat some stuff. We'll come back once it's done. All right, so I got a bunch of items coated here. Still have the starter left to do. We'll do that probably tomorrow. And then, like I said, still have that bracket to do, but everything's looking pretty good. I'm really excited to start putting stuff on this, so. I've also got the throttle body I've got to do. Welcome to my parts pile. Because that thing is gross and you actually see that. And I've got to clean this intake manifold because it is dirty. Next is I'm going to start prepping this exhaust manifold to paint. And I think that's pretty much all I have left to paint. Alternator looks pretty good. Oil cooler right here. I mean, that'll clean up pretty well. That bracket's not going back on. That's just dirt. I have all new engine mounts. Oil filter housing just has to clean up. Clean up most of these lines and stuff. But again, they're just rubber, so some degreaser should clean those up. Got a new valve cover. So yeah, hopefully hopefully tomorrow I'll start putting this together.
Just a little clip I'm making. This is the stock exhaust manifold. We got it all painted and looking brand new, so that looks good. And that's ready to go on the engine.
So essentially, this is the long block at this point. This is how it will look. And now we can get it prepped. So, yeah.
Okay, so the next video you're gonna see is prepping this engine, building it up with all of the new parts that we have, right there, and then some refresh parts right there. So, thank you for watching this video. Next video is coming out soon. You know what to do. Like, comment, subscribe, and follow along for the build. Peace out.